from all walks of life, from every country, from every culture in this process. But you start not with planning. You start with what I call pre planning. It's what you and I are doing. And now I've got to give you the pitch that I need to give to you because you and some of the podcasters out there who I am calling global change podcasters are in charge of the pre-planning process.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a travel podcast by me, Payal Nayar. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Welcome to another Now Boarding episode where we bring together voices from around the globe to discuss pressing issues and stories of impactful change. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming a truly distinguished guest who has dedicated his life to improving global health and fostering peace. His name is Jeffrey Charles Hardy, and Jeffrey is a renowned humanitarian and the visionary founder and president of the Care for Peace International Foundation, which is an organization at the forefront of enhancing global health outcomes. Jeffrey is also an accomplished author. He has penned the thought-provoking book, To Care for Peace, a global mandate to secure the second human evolution in perpetuity. The process is the solution. I'm really curious to know why the title. And of course, I am really excited to be talking to you this morning, Jeffrey.
And me too. Very nice to talk with you, Pale.
Can you walk us through your journey from being an international healthcare facility planner to a humanitarian leader? What key experiences actually shaped your life?
Thank you for the question. Do you have 5 hours? No, I've got. I don't think. Actually, I'll give you the quickest one. I think that I was born to be a humanitarian, and I think that's because my parents drilled it into me, as in not really drilled. They just pointed out the problems that were in the world. And when I was like 10 years old, they took me to Mexico from Tony, Marin County in California. And here we are driving into some of the poorest places in the world, children in boxes, babies in boxes, and barefoot kids all over the place, people living in cardboard houses. And it just, a 10-year-old boy who was wondering when I was going to get my new basketball shoes because I broke some shoelaces, all of a sudden realized that these are kids who don't even have shoes. So I got home with this absolute weird feeling that was not addressed. I couldn't address it. I didn't know how to ask the questions. And so only when I was 19, the Vietnam War was going, I joined the United States Coast Guard Reserves as a hospital corpsman and taking care of the returning seamen from the Mekong Delta. All of a sudden, something clicked in me, and the humanitarian gene, that little thing in my brain, just exploded and said, "This is it. Caring. You're caring." And the process of caring was not something that I learned in school. It was just something that, and the more I worked with nurses all over the world, the more I realized that nurses already know how to care. And they do it because they get something during this caring process. And I call it peace, but it's not the peace when at the end of a war or between two wars. There's no such thing as peace at the end of the war. The Reconstruction in America, forget it. The reign of terror after the French Revolution, forget it. Look at what happened in Germany after the World War I. Was a melting pot for hatred and angst that ended up bubbling up into a guy named Hitler, and realized that care for peace was something that was magical. And I took that all the way through my life, trading any jobs that could possibly maybe get money for these humanitarian jobs. And I helped hospital owners design and build hospitals. I'm not an architect. I'm an operations guy because I'd worked in all these different hospitals as the lowest paid employee in the emergency room. I was a clerk on the wards. I was helping in the business office, in the laboratory, in the pharmacy. I know hospitals. And so the architects love me because I know hospitals and I could help them be heroes, because I could help them build the right hospitals or the right clinics or the right medical centers. And so I started my own company. And then after I sold that, I decided that's it. I'm not going to be helping Kaiser Foundation International. I'm not going to be helping Columbia HCA that owns 192 hospitals nationwide. I'm going to help the poorest people in the world. And so that's where I ended up getting to Myanmar, into Vietnam, Kenya, you name it. It was the most wonderful thing in the world. So the trajectory of my humanitarian life that began probably in Mexico when I was 10 years old just blossomed into something that ended up becoming a nonprofit organization
Yeah.
called Care for Peace, where we went to Myanmar and worked with the government in building a prototype community development and health center that was slated to be replicated throughout the country, deep rural country, as deep rural as any of the deep rural places you can think of in Africa. This is like at the end of the road. There are no roads where I'm going. And in fact, we had to fly from San Francisco to Myanmar, and then we had to take a 3.5 hour boat through a mangrove swamp to a place where we got out of the boat and then hiked for an hour and a half to the place where we built this place. And it was just an incredible thing to help this one little village. And I'm here to say that it takes a whole village to raise a child, but it takes a whole world to raise a village.
Yeah.
And so what we were doing in this process was using what people already had, and it's care for peace. They already care for peace. We just say, okay, you guys already care for peace. What can we do to support that? And it just became a perfect project. And I had lots of failures before in other countries and in the United States where I just did the wrong thing or it didn't end up where it was where I wanted it to be. No, I went to this country absolutely not knowing what the heck I'm going to do. I said, how can I help? And they said, we don't want a clinic. We want a mobile van so that we can actually drive to the outlying villages with our doctors and nurses to help care for their peace. And then we ended up building the clinic and giving the midwives at the clinic motorcycles with little knobbies on the tires. I'm talking about dirty dirt motorcycles. Yeah. And they wore these long skirts that were dirty by the end of the day because of the mud that splattered up, because the midwives needed to get to the birthing process in time for the women to give birth to a baby. Caring for peace was such a wonderful thing. And that's when I decided that this is the culmination of my life. And all of a sudden, Aung San Suu Kyi, who was the president, she was the president. There was another man in the place because she wasn't allowed to be the president. The Nobel Prize winner, a wonderful woman, and her staff got booted out because the military did a coup 26 days after Trump's coup on the United States Capitol. And I don't know if there's a relationship. There might be a relationship between what the military did in Myanmar by throwing all of us out and by staging a coup. But all of a sudden, we could not build 250 more, and we were ready. We had memorandum of understandings with the government, with two organizations, and we did this whole project together. Now what do? I was amputated. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't call them. I couldn't send emails to them. So I decided to write a book, and I did. I came back home and I said, okay, Jeff, lick your wounds, cry a little bit, be really sad because I was. So I gave myself permission to just keep being sad for a little bit. And with that sorrow, I wrote my book, which is called To Care for Peace, a global mandate to secure the second human evolution in perpetuity. Now,
Yeah. I
wait a
want
minute.
to understand more about that from you. Yeah. I'm curious.
Uh, Taking a big leap from helping people in a country for the whole idea of care for peace and then taking it to the book. My book evolved over a 50-year period because I was working with Kaiser Foundation International for many years in Curacao, in Bahamas, in Bahrain, and the Persian Gulf. And when I was working outside the country, sometimes for years at a time, I started putting together now, how can I take my planning tools and help the world? And I know that's about as arrogant and as delusions of adequacy and delusions of grandeur all rolled into me. And I apologize for that, but I said, if I don't think about this, who is going to? And by the way, I followed the path of Jeffrey Sachs and some of the other people who have tried doing the Millennium Village and some of the other people. I didn't assume that I was the only one who had this idea at all. I tried to find other people, but nobody at the time had really said, okay, if you stand back and look at the whole path of humanity, how do you break that down so that we can stand back and look at it? And that's where I had this idea that came actually from traveling in a traffic jam from New Delhi to Agra. It took us 4 hours to go, probably what would have taken us, I don't know, 2 hours maybe, but it was jam packed with traffic. And when I was sitting in a taxi, air conditioned taxi, I said, this is it. Humanity is, we've taken over the planet. Pretty soon, I wouldn't even be able to go to Agra. And I said, this must be the end of something. It must be the end of the first human evolution, the first human evolution. I had in my head the first human evolution.
You mentioned the first human evolution ended in the mid 60s.
Yes. Yes.
And what were the changes, or what were the specific events that actually, in your opinion, marked this transition?
Oh, thank you for asking that question because, yeah, when did the first human evolution start? About 2.5 million years ago, okay? That's when we started putting little sticks down holes and pulling out ants and sucking them off the stick and then pounding things with rocks to make arrows and grind up barley or food or whatever it is. So that's when it started. So I said, when did this end? Because it did. It ended sometime in the mid 60s. The obvious one is mutually assured destruction. The minute we had, which was coined sometime in the 50s, but I think in the mid 60s, we had grasped that, but we also started grasping that humanity had conquered nature sometime in that area. This is nowhere, you can't put your finger on this, but that's why I say it's sometime in the mid 60s. It's also when the peace movement began. It's when existentialism came to us from France. There's a lot of things. Oh, Nixon went to China, and all of a sudden, Americans realized that China wasn't what you saw on the bottom of your little toys, wasn't what on the collar of your shirt. That it was actually this gigantic country, and we had people traveling more. It's all mid '60s was a unbelievable period of awareness, and I have to admit, the Beatles, there's a lot of music that happened. The culture exploded worldwide. And So that's the mid 60s. And it's interesting when I'm having meetings, other people start piping in right now and start saying, oh, no, I got a few more. It's not the mid 60s, it's the mid 50s. And then they have an argument. I say, I don't really care. The fact is, it's over. And
Keep on.
so
Yeah.
now I'm a planner, and this is the most important thing. I was trained by the mentor of the people who started the Kaiser Health system. Sid Garfield, Maury Collin were my first two mentors. Other mentors from Kaiser joined their force, teaching me how to be a planner. And so it was, and that's 50 years ago. And so I'm a planner. So I needed to write a book to share with people my planning tools, the ones that I learned and the ones that I've developed and adapted over the years. Because I'll tell you, when I'm designing a hospital that's going to be $500 million, that's the cost. You've got a group of people that you're starting with that you're going to be with for about 2 years. And this group of people is from all walks of life, all professions. Example, I was in Bahrain in the Persian Gulf. We were designing a tiny little clinic next to the hospital. And I looked around and there were 12 people in this meeting. All 12 could be identified by their professions, but there were 9 different countries represented in that room, and most of them were from England, and only 2 of them, my wife and me, were from America. But the other ones were from India. We had a Rhodesian, what was it? She was an OBGYN. And then, of course, we had Bahraini owners of the hospital. It's like I had this experience where I had to use my tools in different ways all over. So all of that went into the book because at some point I realized that we've got to use some form of tools to be able to design what I am calling the second human evolution. Because God helped us build, if you want to look at it from a religious standpoint, our spirits helped us build the first human evolution. Also, humanity just evolved, wars and everything else. All the history books that tell you somebody killed somebody else, and so the person who killed the other person is now in charge, and that's that country or that tribe or whatever is now in charge, and that was the whole first human evolution. No, we can't take the process that we have inherited, which is, okay, it's just going to happen to us. We've got to do the job ourselves. This is us. And what I tell religious people is, please bring your religion with you. Bring your gods with you. I need to have everybody at that table. I have been at the table with religious people who are helping us design a health system. When I was in Myanmar, I had a whole bunch of monks who insisted on coming to the meetings. It was incredible. So, no, we have to have representatives from all walks of life, from every country, from every culture in this process. But you start not with planning. You start with what I call pre-planning. It's what you and I are doing. And now I've got to give you the pitch that I need to give to you, because you and some of the podcasters out there who I am calling global change podcasters are in charge the pre-planning process, because pre-planning is talk. It's talking about, well, okay, so you got the first human evolution. Let's talk about, that's how I start, because people love talking about that. When was the end? Oh, I'll tell you that. Oh, what is the second human evolution? Okay, let's brainstorm on that. That's a good. Where are we now? We are now in the human, suspended between 2 evolutions. One we've already been through, and one we haven't even designed. We don't even know what it is yet. But there are some things that we can do, which is to establish frameworks for discussion. That's the
Yeah.
pre-planning process. Frameworks. And that's why I look to you, because you're carrying this ball. You have a responsibility that you chose.
Yeah.
This isn't somebody giving it to you. You're not a government employee. You're not somebody who's part of some big organization. No, you chose the path that you're on, and the people who listen to you are the people that we need to reach, because they are the people who will know that pre-planning is something that is not yet in their vocabulary, and they need to put it in their vocabulary.
Yeah.
And they can start with care for peace. Just think of that. And I talk about what care for peace is in the book. I talk about what the threats are to caring for peace, what the threats are from even talking about the second human evolution. Because one of the things about planning, pre-planning, or any discussion is you got to do a lot of failure avoidance. And you've got to have a dignity. And you have to have a way of discussion that is not opinionated discussion, but is issue-based discussion. It's procedural, it's didactic, it's debate, it's wonderful. And it can be done
Yeah.
because I've been doing it for 50 years.
It can never be perfect, but an ideal global nation. What
What
comes to mind when you think about the concept of a global nation?
a group of nations. It is beyond international. It is something of higher level. And once again, I don't think I'm inventing anything. Look, we had the League of Nations. Okay, now we have the United Nations. These are wonderful organizations. They've got some major procedural problems that are just as bad as America's procedural problems when it comes to implementing the United States Constitution. Oh my gosh, with Murphy's Law, Murphy, the guy who said that if there's a way something can go wrong, it will. Oh, this is an understatement. So we have to have the ability to stand back and say, okay, this isn't working. And no, I don't own it. I inherited a lot of it, but I do own from now on.
Yeah.
And so I need to be thinking about now on.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of Care for Peace and To Care for Peace and the global mandate to secure the second human evolution. Because if we don't, forget it. We'll be talking to all the people who are talking about the sixth extinction. And what do you think about the sixth extinction? And it's all human oriented. And then I get asked about the Holocene and the Anthropocene. Holocene is completely a geographic concept. It's geography. Okay. The Anthropocene is geography that relates to our everlasting imprint on our geography. Okay. The first and second human evolution is just us. It's just humanity. And if you want to include the Neanderthals, go ahead, but I don't. I'm looking at Homo sapiens, and because we're the ones on the earth right now, so we got to get together. Because frankly, I'm a simple guy, and everything I've come up with is easy to know. You don't even, yeah, I am a precursor. I don't even think I am a class. I'm not even a instructor, because when you all sit down in the chairs, I'm going to be finished with my speech in 10 minutes. And then you
Yeah,
ask questions.
it has to, obviously, someone has to be listening to it and create that your speech, as because you mentioned it, creates an impact, and then someone takes it further and listens and understands and has their own initiative and inputs to try and take it forward. I think, yes, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, climate change. What do you think is happening at the moment? Do you think on a global level enough initiatives are being taken as far as the current situation is concerned? Because it is alarming.
It is. And I am so proud to be a human, because I'm looking at what humans are doing to try to protect the ginormous problems. When I read that Florida is going to have to put a levee around the entire state because the seas are going to rise, okay, that's a problem. We've got to address it. The only problem is Florida's probably addressing it. The federal government will probably give them some money, and then there'll be money for that, and the state money, and then the taxes will be there. But the problem that we have is that we don't have a global process. We need a global process. We are not there. We are moving in the right direction because I look at what the fish industry is doing to curb, and they're putting monitors on fishing vessels to make sure that each fishing vessel, that this is right out here in California, each fishing vessel is not overfishing. People are doing what they can do. I'm proud to be a human. I think that I could look all over. We were in Ireland, and I was amazed. All over Ireland, they had the bins, the green bin, the black bin, the, the blue bin for recycling and for waste and everything. And I was talking with the people in the hotel. They were taking these bags out, and I was saying, "What are those?" They take all of the edible stuff or the stuff that people had been eating, and it goes to a pig farm. We can't do that in the United States because we've got bacteria. We're afraid of giving our diseases to the pigs, where the problems that we've had with animals are the other way around. you know. So
Yeah.
I we're already moving in the right direction. The United Nations, the Health Association, all of the associations are doing a phenomenal job. The scientists are doing it. I am so glad I'm a human and I'm not a monkey right now, because if
Right.
I was a monkey, and that's in the beginning of the first human evolution, no, humans have progressed a long way, and there are threats. Our technical abilities to create weaponry, and some of the overpopulation is a threat, overbuilt, overconsumption, the planet's resources. All these overs that are problems are being addressed. They're being addressed. So we have nothing but hope. But with hope, we need to validate
Yeah.
what we're doing and make sure that we're moving fast enough. Because Al Gore said, when he wrote his wonderful book and did his television show, said that we're not moving fast enough. And I appreciate that as a kick in the butt. That's fine. But I think that now we got to establish a process, and that will occur if we can get enough people. I don't like using the word groundswell, but I'm looking to you. I'm looking to the other people. I've only had 30 of these podcasts in the last year, and it's because I'm not talking to the podcasters who, they've got some kind of way to cook shrimp 100,000 ways. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
talking with them. I'm not talking on to the legal people. And there's lots and lots of podcast people out there that I'm saying, I wish I could please keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
Thank
that's
you.
not
Yeah,
what
no,
we're,
thank you for that, because, yeah, no, it just reinforces the fact that I speak for me personally, and I'm sure there are other podcasters like me, and it just reinforces what we are trying to do and the objective of being a voice that is able to travel. And that's the beauty of a podcast, because it's people from all over the world are able to listen in. And I think if there is a message there, even if there's one small piece of information that can help someone make a decision and move forward with what they have been thinking, but they have not had the courage to go ahead with for whatever reason, I think it is a job well done. I appreciate the fact that you understand the importance of it, and you're absolutely right. There are hundreds of podcasters out there who have a very different objective, and they're not wrong, they're different. And I feel that is the kind of initiative, and that's the responsibility that I have taken as a podcaster for my show Now Boarding, and which is why I appreciate guests like yourself who help to also articulate the fact that it is good what we are doing and we're trying to help. No, so thank you. I appreciate that. Just before we end the conversation, I could, like you mentioned, you have 5 hours, but unfortunately not. I just wanted two things from you. One, any other projects that are upcoming or initiatives that you're excited about and that you would like to share on this platform? That's one. And two, what is, I know it's just been this entire conversation you've been advising and suggesting, but just as a closing, anything that you would like to say to people out there who who want to be humanitarians but don't know how to do that?
So to answer your first question, which is what is exciting for me to look forward to, is for you and your audience to start taking these pre-planning tasks. That's the answer to the first question. Now, the second answer is what do I want to leave everybody with? I'm going to leave you with the first sentence in the preface of the book. And this is what the sentence is: to care for peace may not be the secret of life, but it is as close to the secret of living there is. To care for peace may not be the secret of life, but it is as close to the secret of living there is.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better. And I'm really keen to read your books. And if you could just share where the book is available, and if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
We have a website, careforpeace.org. They can email me at jeff@careforpeace.org. They can buy the book on Amazon, but you really don't even have to buy the book. You can go to Amazon and you can read the cover of the book and then look at the back cover blurb that is also on the Amazon, and then you don't have to buy the book. Listen, I did not write this book to make money. I wrote this book because all of a sudden I was kicked out of Myanmar. That's it. That's why I wrote it. It's not like I'm going to make money on this and say, oh, I'm going to buy another house. I don't want another house. I want to pass on what I have learned and what I haven't learned yet.
Yeah.
So help me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you. And if not Myanmar, I'm sure there's going to be another country that needs you and needs the kind of humanitarian work that you are doing. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your time.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.